Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV. I'm Vedanta Karwal. Our top focus, well, the Israel-Hamas war and the diplomacy around it. Well, a day after US President Joe Biden, now UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is in Tel Aviv. He just landed a short while back. These are first visuals of him landing in Israel. Of course, a crucial diplomatic visit there. He is expected to meet top leaders of Israel to in a sense, express his solidarity towards Israel. This along the lines of what US President Joe Biden also said. But on the ground, the situation, of course, remains concerning. There's been no movement as such as far as aid entering blockaded Gaza is concerned. And on the broadcast, I'm being joined by Celia Mendoza, senior correspondent of Voice of America. She's been covering the war extensively, and she joins us live from Jerusalem. Celia, thanks very much for joining us on the broadcast this afternoon. How do you see this diplomacy actually translating on the ground? Because ever since President Joe Biden's visit, not much has really moved in terms of aid entering Gaza. So while these visuals are great in terms of symbolism, how much of it is actually translating on the ground?
Actually, it's been difficult for the words to come into action. It's a lot of pieces that are in movement. And the visit of President Biden came at a time of very high tensions after the attack in the Gaza hospital that killed over 400 people. So the fact that at least the talks or the idea that the humanitarian aid will be able to get in after President Biden during his flight back to the U.S. said that it was agreement not only with Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, but also with the president of Egypt that the border will be open. He says that they will start moving 20 trucks that are now parked in the border in Egypt and will go to Gaza. It will be checkpoints, inspections to avoid Hamas to be able to get to that aid. But as you say, we don't have movement yet. Biden explained that it will take a little bit of time just because the bombings on the Rafah area in Gaza, they had destroyed roads and that needs to be repaired before they can get in. He's aiming for Friday for that to happen. So the visit of the UK Prime Minister is one effort more in diplomacy to be able to try to get that corridor. He has asked not only for the humanitarian aid to get into Gaza, but also for British nationals to be able to evacuate through Egypt. As many of them, also Canadians and US citizens that are stuck there. And he wants to make sure that his presence and his meeting, which will start, if it goes on a schedule, in about 25 minutes at the house of the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, will be the first of a series of important meetings and also visits throughout the region by the prime minister, who says that this is a watershed moment after the hospital bombing for world leaders to come to an agreement and de-escalate this conflict that is getting every day more dangerous for the world.
Absolutely, Celia. I understand that you have to head out for your shoot. Celia is there reporting on the front lines. But very quickly, talk to us about the larger geopolitical ramifications as well, because now we are seeing protests, across the globe as well. And if we can get those visuals up of protests across, across West Asia, and there is this anti-West sentiment that seems to be very evident as far as these countries like Lebanon and Turkey are concerned. How do you see that? Do you see these visits by world leaders in a sense also exacerbating the relations between, say, the Middle East and the Western nations?
It is definitely a vision from the Arab world that the presence of important leaders like the President of the United States, the Chancellor of Germany, the UK Prime Minister, it is a backing of the operation that the government of Israel is carrying through. But we have to also remember that one and each of those members of the political world, leaders, have said that they condemn attacks against the civilian population. They condemn the loss of life, but at the same time, they want to make sure the Hamas is stopped. And we, in this moment, don't have a fight between two governments. We have a fight between what Israel and other world countries consider a terrorist group, which will be Hamas. So that's the fine line that they're trying to thread as the Arab world is really upset, not only because of the operation, but this is a buildup of years of complaints by the Palestinian people. We don't have to go so far. Actually, I'm a few kilometers away from the occupied territory of the West Bank, and Ramallah is being protested every day since the bombing. And yesterday it's been confirmed that at least 7 people have died within that area because of the protests and the police reacting to those. So definitely it's an anti-America, anti-Israeli sentiment that is being felt on the Arab world. We saw it with the protests in Jordan during last night, in Turkey, Egypt, as you mentioned, Lebanon. The governments of Canada and the United States have requested their nationals to leave Lebanon as tensions rise. But in the middle of all of this, we also have seen, like no ever before in this conflict, the willingness of the leaders to be involved, to come to the region, even though it's an active war happening here, and to be engaged with those on the other side, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Qataris. And that is important in a moment where it is being said that it will be a ground incursion. Yesterday, President Biden talked about this. He had an extended bilateral with Benjamin Netanyahu. He actually ran over an hour to an hour and a half longer in the bilateral at the hotel in Tel Aviv where he met him. And he said that was one of the things that they talked about. And he also in his remarks said something that is important. He said the United States was angry after the 9/11 attacks. And sometimes acting out of emotion can lead us to mistakes. And he said the United States made mistakes after the 9/11 attacks. And he was pretty much just telling the leader of Israel and its people that are very hurt, very angry about the deaths, about the way it was carried out, the attack, that it's important to measure their response. But at the same time, the U.S. Is behind a military response against Hamas. But the incursion in the ground will change what is happening. And we cannot forget that at the same time, it's 199 people that is still held hostage. And the president of the United States just gave us a little bit of information saying, I cannot say details about this, but it is something that is front mind of the U.S. as well as the governments that have citizens there.
Celia, thanks so much for joining us with that very important perspective there. Do stay safe yourself. Celia, they're reporting from Jerusalem.